Did you know? According to Robert Feldman, in a 10-minute conversation, we tell an average of 3.3 lies. That's almost a lie every 3 minutes. And Ralph Keyes says that some form of deception occurs nearly 2/3 of all conversations. And in David Callahan's research, he says Americans are not only cheating more in many areas, but also feeling less guilty about it. Welcome back, everyone. We are in week 6 of our Good and Beautiful Life series, and today we're talking about learning to live without lying. Have you ever told a lie? Maybe a white lie, a little deception. Have you ever told the kids, no, you know what, the ice cream store is closed, when in fact you know fully well it is not? Or have you ever told a loved one, no, you do not look fat in that dress? Or maybe even in the workplace, have you ever called in sick when in fact it was just to go and see a friend who was in town for a very short time? I'm sick. There are a lot of different ways in which we bend reality, in which we tell little fibs and we think that it doesn't hurt anybody. And so somehow we believe that is justified, that it's okay. And for those of you who have seen the film Liar, Liar featuring Jim Carrey, you'll remember him teaching his son, Max, no one can survive in the adult world if they have to stick to the truth. This can be the false narrative in our culture, in our lives, that it's okay to bend reality a little, to tell little fibs, little lies. And ultimately, there are 2 drivers that move us toward lying. The first driver is fear. We are afraid of the consequences. And so perhaps we're in a situation where we know if we tell the truth, we're going to get in trouble. And so we tell a little fib, a little lie in order to avoid the uncomfortable consequences of our actions. And the second driver is desire. That somehow by lying, we can gain something, and we really long for that gain. We want whatever it is that is available to us if we lie. And so we do, so we can have it. Now, Jesus teaches us in the next section of the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew chapter 5, starting at verse 33. Again, you have heard that it was said to the people long ago, do not break your oath, but fulfill to the Lord the vows you have made. But I tell you, do not swear an oath at all, either by heaven, for it is God's throne, or by earth, for it is his footstool, or by Jerusalem, for it is his city, for it is the city of the great king. And do not swear by your head, for you cannot make even one hair white or black. All you need to say is simply yes or no. Anything beyond this comes from the evil one. You see, Jesus, in all of these comparative, you have heard it said, but I tell you phrases, Jesus is making a distinction between what is righteous and what is of the kingdom of God. You see, all of the people who were listening heard all of these teachings, and this is what the Pharisees would have taught. If you're going to take an oath, keep it, don't break it. That's a very righteous thing to do. This is what the Pharisees were teaching. And Jesus sees that as being it is an outward behavior, but Jesus wants to get into the heart. He recognizes that there is something that can be evil happening on inside of us, and yet we can still outwardly keep the code of righteousness. And so Jesus wants to get at the heart issue. And so really what Jesus is doing in this entire sermon is he is calling us to be new people. He is teaching us what it means to be a new kind of person. And so what Jesus is getting at in this passage is that whether there is an oath or not, kingdom people tell the truth. That they live in the truth without fear, without the need for personal gain. And so when you live in the kingdom, all the drivers that move us to lying, we don't need them. We can let go of them. We don't need to lie because we're afraid of the consequences. When we give control to God, we surrender control, we surrender outcomes, we surrender consequences. We submit ourselves to the rule and reign, to the lordship of God. We allow him to have his way in us, knowing even if we do suffer consequences, we know God will be there with us. And he will be shaping and molding us into his people, into his kingdom people, in order to make a kingdom impact, even in the midst of our consequences. And we don't need to worry about personal gain, because what we find in God when we surrender all control to him is more valuable than anything else we could possibly try and gain in this world. This is why Jesus teaches the parable of the lost coin and the lost son and the lost pearl, or the buried treasure. A man finds a buried treasure in a field, and he sells everything he has to buy that one field, because he knows what he has found is far superior to anything else he already owns or anything else he could possibly have. Now, this week we have two opportunities, two different types of practices that you can have. One is a bit harder than the other, but nevertheless, you're going to get whatever you put into this discipline, into this time. And so the first, which is the harder, is a day of silence. Now, there's going to be some preparation you're going to need to make with this. Now, the first thing you're going to have to do with this is you're going to have to pick a day. What day is it that you're going to practice a day of silence? And the second most important thing is you're going to need to tell people that you're doing this. You're going to have to let people know, this is the day I'm practicing silence. And so if you call me, you're not going to hear much. So best, if you're working, best to email me. It's probably better to do it on a weekend. When you're home with your family, let your family know what you're doing. And then there are some other things that you can do. Pick a time frame on that day. Are you going to do sundown to sundown? Friday evening to Saturday evening? So you're going to want to pick a time frame. The next thing you might want to have handy is a whiteboard, a portable whiteboard, or a notepad, so that if you do need to communicate in some way, you can do that. You can write something down and show it and practice that. And another very important thing is that charity always supersedes discipline. And so if you are walking and you see someone who is in trouble, by all means, yell at the top of your lungs. The discipline of silence is not so important that it is worth someone's life or someone's safety or well-being. So just recognize that, be smart about it. But I do encourage you to try a day of silence. Now, if this is something that just will not work in your life, and you know that there's no way you could possibly do this, then the other option is to try a day without lying, but to live by the truth through and through. And we might think, oh, okay, well, that's easy, I'll do that one. But, take great care in it and recognize this. That means if a child asks you a question, you answer it truthfully. If a colleague asks you a question, you answer it truthfully. You live in the truth. You do not lie in any way, shape, or form. So I want to leave you with both of those and leave it up to you and the Spirit to help you discern which practice, which discipline will help you in your faith journey at this time. Until next week, have a great week, and God bless.